So the AI for interior design is getting crazier every day, and last week I started using this AI tool called ReRender to render my SketchUp model, and the result was pretty crazy. You can use ReRender to change the materials quite easily, and it also has this crazy feature that instantly empties out your current space and completely restyles in a new design. And the best part is that you guys can use this for free. So in this video, I'm going to show you the basic workflow of ReRender, how to get started. I'm gonna share my takes on pros and cons and the most effective way to maximize this AI. Let's get started. So the first thing you want to do is type in ReRender and go to their website. This is the homepage that you will see once you log in. First, you'll have the tutorials on the top, and then the workbench, and then you see all this past project created by other creators. On the left-hand side, you see all this tab from Render, which is we're gonna show it today. Enhance is like SketchUp view and creating realistic view, which is crazy. Coloring lets you color your space plan, which is also very helpful. Staging is so crazy tool. You can empty out your current space and completely restyle in a different design. And then editing tool lets you edit materials or specific areas that you want to change to a different furniture, for example. And then also the sketch tool lets you sketch on top of your sketch in this website, so you can render after that. For mood board, I won't go into too much detail, but you can basically create your own mood board here. I'll get into and explain a little bit more later. And then the video tab, again, you can make your own video from the renders that you created, which is crazy. And then going into this guide, you can see all these tutorials that ReRender provides, so you can also start from here to kind of start learning. And then in the history tab, this is where you can see all your past projects. You can go back and reselect. And then for the accounts, this is straightforward. I don't really need to teach you here, but you'll see all your information and you can change your membership plan, for example. But let me start by showing you guys how to use this render tool. So this page is quite straightforward. There's a guide and step-by-step to follow, so it's super easy. But what you want to do is start by importing your images, such as your illustrations, sketches, or SketchUp model. And then once you upload them, you want to go and move on to this number 2, which is selecting the style. So again, this mood board I kind of talked about earlier. So this is where you can bring your own style. So in the mood board tab, this is where you can import your own images or the reference images and create your own mood board that you can bring it into this style. But for this one, I'm going to actually use what they already have. So go to the preset style, and then in here you have so many styles that you can choose from. For example, this one is single family home, and there's so many. This is for office building, and then you could go to futuristic buildings as well. There's so many that you can choose, so it's a great starting point to kind of choose from here. I'm going to select this minimalist look, and then let's move on to the next one. So once you select the style, now we move on to number 3 and adding details. So this is where you can control time of the day, season, sky, landscape, and so on. So let's start by selecting time of the day, and I'm going to select this midday because I want the daylight. And then the season, I'm going to choose maybe summer, and then confirm. Sky, again, I'm gonna choose maybe the cloud sky. And then the landscape, maybe there's so many, but I'm going to choose the forest view. I don't know if it's relevant. And then architectural material tab is especially useful when you have your images or illustration in black and white, so no materials applied, because once you select one of these materials or palettes, reference images, AI will automatically start from this materials finishes, so it's very useful. I'm not going to choose anything here because I already have my SketchUp model with the materials, so let's not use this one. And then you can either choose if you want to be shown on the public or not. I'm not going to select that, but now I'm going to describe this image. So I'm just going to type in modern living room with sofa and lounge chairs, TV in the center wall, large window on the left hand side. And you can also click this refine my prompts, and later on the AI will help you kind of understand and curate the prompts a little bit better. And then precise, balanced, creative is making sure that AI follows precisely to your image, or you want them to be a little bit more creative, and balance is in between. I'm going to choose precise because I want to have exactly the same image and don't change any furniture and stuff, so I'm going to choose precise. And you can also click this preserve texture, which means the AI will preserve your materials finishes as much as possible. I think I'm going going to untick this for now, and let's move on to the next one. So I'm just going to select, and basically like because I selected AI to like improve my prompt, they are doing like the whole like refining the details. So now they're going to render as their prompt, which I'm okay with. But you can edit the prompt. So once you're happy with it, let's go ahead and render this image. I am fast forwarding this process, but usually it takes like just under like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, which is super fast. And they will just create this like stunning visuals like straight away. So this has created like a new render. As you can see, like this image is super realistic now. There are a few bits that is very different from my original like SketchUp model. So I'm just gonna highlight that. So first of all, like they kept the couch in the same color. I think the rugs are also very similar. They kept like the timber flooring. I'm not sure about like the lamp because it changed the texture, for example. And again, like there is this lounge chair that is more like brown-ish like fabric, but now it's like blue. I'm not really happy with like the background wool color because it's supposed to be like this concrete texture. But again, I think this like TV joinery units, like the wool units, is very accurate to my SketchUp model. They've added like the curtain on the left-hand side. They've understood there is like a big glass, for example. And then again, like I haven't really put like a window here, but they've kind of like understood as in like it's a big window, so like they've added like a planting, like a jungle outside. Although I did mention that I wanted like in a forest mood, so that's on me. But you can understand that they've kept like few bits here and there, but also changed quite a lot of things. So there are very like similarities from my original image, but at the same time they haven't accurately understood my color palettes and the materiality from the SketchUp. They will always give you like 3 to 4 like renders, so you can kind of test out and see which one is your favorite. But I am actually going to try this like prompt again. So once you scroll down, there is like preserved texture bar. So I'm just going to bring this up to 0.9 and see how much they're going to preserve the texture materials, since they didn't capture on the first place. So that's how this goes. I'm very excited to see if this like bar will dictate the change. Okay, here we have the new render. To be fair, so like preserving texture meant that they've kind of like preserved the sketchy looks. So I don't think this was quite successful render, to be fair. There are one in the fourth one that looks very like realistic out of like all this like 4 renders, but I don't think it was as realistic as I wanted to be. So let's try this again, and I'm just going to bring this bar down to 0.7 and let's see what happens. Okay, so it seems like if you have a SketchUp model, like maybe the higher you go on a bar, like preserved texture bar, like it will like keep the SketchUp aesthetics, and the lower you go, it will make more realistic. So maybe the preserved texture bar isn't that relevant if you wanted a really like realistic view. But let's look at the quality of the render again. So I do think it has improved quite a lot from the first render. It has kept a lot of the materiality from my SketchUp original model, so I think that's good. The only thing that they didn't capture is again this like lounge chair. Maybe this really hard like textures that I've modeled on SketchUp, I'm not sure, but it's supposed to be brown, so it not should be like this blue. And I think the only difference is like this lamp, for example, the head is still white and it's supposed to be black, but they've lit the lighting, they kept like the shapes and everything as accurate to my SketchUp model. So I think that's a great start. If there was anything that they could be like better, I guess in my opinion, is like the preciseness and accuracy of the materials, the colors. I think those things could be improved for this app, but overall I think it's a great like starting point. And I thought I'll try bringing in like black and white images just to see like if that would make the render a little bit better than the materials are already applied. So I'm going to create a new project by going back to the render tab, and then I'm going to upload the black and white version of the same image that I've modeled. Then I'm going to choose like the style of the apartment complex, doesn't matter which one you choose, and then I'm going to select exactly the same details, so like midday, summer, cloudy sky, and then the forest view. And then now I'm going to actually apply the architectural materials. I'm going to choose this like wooden kind of look, and let's see if we didn't have the materials, how better quality this would create. Maybe this render tool is for something that is a little bit more black and white. It works a little bit better. So I'm going to try and write modern living room with timber floor, dark smoke, dark TV unit, and light gray blue sofa, white lounge chairs, earthy rug, large window on the left hand side, And then I'm going to try and maybe click the balance, just because I want the AI to maybe be a little bit creative, but at the same time like preserve my SketchUp model, like furniture and stuff. So let's see how this will turn out. Wow, okay, so it's hard to say whether it has created like good or not that great render, because we didn't really have like a reference image to start with, but I do think they've modeled this like quite realistically. They do give us like 4 options, so you can kind of like see and play which one that you like. And I think this render tool actually works quite best when you are stuck with your ideas, you just want to see what kind of like materials that could work in this space better. I think it's a quick like brainstorming tool that you can use most of the time, rather than asking for a like really accurate visuals. I think it's more for like a play and have fun, try out different like styles, materials, colors, like experiment with the design. I think this tool works best for that. But what I do really want to show you guys is this like enhanced tool. So let's move on to this tab, and this one is actually really crazy. You can actually like make a stunning visual. So what you have to do is click on this 3D model rendering, and I'm going to choose the material optimize, and then what you can do is upload the same image that we've just used from SketchUp, and once you upload them, it automatically start generating some beautiful render. And I found this enhanced tool particularly useful because it's so much better quality, and it's just so much different than the rendering tool when they didn't capture a lot of my materials. But with enhanced, they've captured it super like precisely, and the quality of like the visuals looks a lot more realistic and more like atmospheric, if I would say. So like they kept like the windows, they kept like the brown fabrics, for example, they kept like the concrete background, which is super great. So I'm really happy with this like change and like how they've like render this tool. So I am very impressed with this tool, and as you can see, it's almost like identical, and they give you like 4 options again, but I found that like the first one had the most better quality. So I'm just going to use this image to further go with like editing tools. So now I want to, let's say, turn on the lighting on this image. You can kind of go to edit tool and type in turn on the pendant light, and I will show you that the first render actually didn't succeed. So they modified the lighting, so you kind of have to try out like many times to kind of get what you are asking. But I typed in again to turn on the lighting and keep everything else, for example, and run it again, and now it has kept quite nicely as the original image. They've also added some lighting on the bookshelf, which is like additional look that AI just understood, and it just looks so much better. The only thing is that they didn't keep the rug, which is a shame. That's the only like minor point, but to be fair, I'm not really bothered by that at this point, because the quality of like the shadow, lighting, and all the other elements are super accurate. And once you're happy with like one image that you like, I'm gonna show you that you can also make a video out of it. So let's start creating like maybe the fly through video. So let's click on generate, and it will make you go into this page, and once you have the image, you can choose the style of the camera movement. So I think I'm just going to choose the fly through, and you can either choose 5 seconds or 10 seconds, and let's hit generate, and voila, like it just made a super fast video just in like seconds, which is crazy. So if you're looking to create like a little animation of your space, this is like the most fastest way to create like a stunning video of your image without doing any kind of like coding or like editing. So this is such a great tool. And I also want to show you this editing tool that is super helpful. So like once you had the image that you liked, I have downloaded them so that I could bring into this tab. So once you go into edit tab and upload the image, it would go into like this page, and what you can do is start selecting like the elements that you want to change, the material, for example. So now I'm going to select all this like book cabinetry, the wall unit, and let's say I want to try this into like light Scandi oak. You can go to material section, and they already have a selection of palette that you can maybe play around with. I particularly wanted like this Scandinavian light wood texture, so I'm going to write that into the custom material section. Just write down like Scandinavian ash maybe, and then hit submit, and honestly within a second they're going to change this material palettes. And as you can see, it created a layer so you can turn off and on and see the differences. I didn't cover certain areas. I'm just going to try this again and then hit generate, and this time I've included the coffee table, and again voila, you can straight away see this like changes which is super cool. I'm also going to test out and change this sofa, for example, and in this material they don't really have a selection of like materials, so what you can do is go to custom material, and I'm going to maybe change this to like maybe dark burgundy maybe fabric. So let's see how the sofa will change, and voila, created a burgundy sofa. So I think we used to do this in like Photoshop, so it's such a like fast tool to just see like what kind of color works in the interior space. And the great thing is that you can turn on and off like these layers, so like you can create your own combination. I do recommend, actually I figured out that I've highlighted too big, so like when you turn off one layer you can see like the oak color that is slightly like over the sofa. So I do recommend when selecting like the areas, make sure to like select the brush sizes like small, so you can like highlight the details area of the sofa so that you can create better quality like changes, right? Okay, so the final tool I want to show you guys is this staging tool, which is like so crazy and quite useful. What it does is that you can upload like your own living room or kitchen, your current design, and then this AI will basically empty out your room, as you can see here, and then change into a completely new design image. So I'm just going to use my own living room. So this is what I've uploaded, like just a simple living room. You have an option now to empty your room basically. So if you wanted a blank canvas, you can click here basically, but I want to show you how it could look without changing this original image. So let's move on now for number 2, which is choosing the staging mode. So in here you have a different type of like room that you can select. So if you click there, it has all the bathroom, like kitchen, and etc. I'm going to simply choose the living room, and then the room style, it also has this like default interior style, and you can kind of choose from here, or you can go to like custom, which you can bring your own aesthetic, so like mood board from Pinterest for example. But let's say I want to choose the Scandinavian look just to experiment, so let's select this one and hit generate. And again, ReRender is like super quick in generating this new images, but there we go, now we have the image. I do think they've kept like this reference image quite accurately, so like the lamp style, the sofa style, couch style, and so on. And I think they've kept my room in a sense that it's like a white room and it has like the timber floor. I think they've kind of twisted the angle a little bit, and they've kind of camouflaged this like glass window detail with the curtain. But I think it's quite impressive that they've just blanked out my whole room. Like they've removed the planting, the artworks, the sofa, and just took out the shell and the architecture of the rooms. I've also noticed that there's no like going back tab, so like you can't really go back to the image before that you've worked on. So every time if you want to like, if you didn't like the new image and you want to go back, you can't really do that. So you basically have to create a new project again, which is a shame. But now I want to try it out, completely empty out the room. So let's go back to the staging, and I'm gonna start a new project by uploading an image. And this time let's hit this like empty my room, and let's see how accurate this is going to create. So I think I'm pretty impressed with this like change. Like I think it has completely kept like the room, the size, like the window position, and like the details of the blinder, etc. And I think I'm pretty happy with this starting point. Again, remember that there's no going back tool, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to download this image. You're gonna thank me later, because if you want to make changes you can upload this image again. So let's download this while we can, and this time I'm going to custom the reference staging mode. So I'm going to upload a reference image from Pinterest that I found. I'm going to use this image, and let's hit generate. Okay, so I can see that they've just like started dumping the furniture into the room, but it's a great starting point. To be fair, it looks very realistic in my opinion. The furniture choices, I'm not too sure, but we can work on that. But like the architectural details, like the room itself hasn't changed, you know, like they haven't modified anything in the room. And I think like they've kind of like zoomed out, so the room looks a little bit bigger, and you can kind of see the changes after and before. So let's use this image as a starting point. So I'm going to edit, and then I'm just going to ask, saying that maybe add a cream rug with a black abstract line, and this is how you can start creating your own design like on top of what you've created already. So you're never gonna get the image right, creates by first attempt, so you have to keep adding layers with AI. And this is the fun part, right? So like you can start adding your own taste and creativity to it. So now it's starting to look like there's some kind of design, and you can either go to like this edit tab and then keep asking like by text. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to download this image now and then bring it into this edit tab, because now you can edit in the image. So I'm going to upload what we've just downloaded now, and basically now it makes everything a little bit more easier to edit. So you can start selecting the things that you want to change. So first, let's test out changing this coffee table. So I want the rectangular marble coffee table instead. So I'm just going to type that out and submit, and they will create like this new layer with a marble coffee table, which is crazy. I'm also going to change this like bookshelf to maybe like a timber bookshelf with the decoration inside. So I'm going to type that in and let's see what it does. And then again, it creates like a new layer, and I think this is quite impressive, and you can start to see what you can do with it. I'm going to delete this like side table, and because I just want to remove it, they've already highlighted this remove tab, and I don't need to type anything. I just submit and they will remove this object from it. It still has a little bit of a shadow, but I think it still removes it in a really like neat way. So I think I'm fine with that. And you know, you can keep adding layers and change stuff and add things that you want to do. Like I'm going to change this like cushion, for example, to like a dark mesh velvet cushion, and it does that for you. So I think you can like really use this tool to really play around with it and like bring in some object that you want from like Pinterest, for example. I'm going to maybe add like artwork here. So I'm going to highlight here and then basically ask this AI to add like a contemporary artwork. Again, I'm not being super specific, so I'm not sure what it would come up with, but if you have like a particular artwork that you want to bring in, you could specify some colors or like, you know, the design, and I think it would bring in a little bit more accurate design. For example, I'm not really happy with this like artwork. I don't think it looks that great, but you know, you get the point. I think you can really play around, and I think this is a great tool like if you're like just want to see the change in your room and you want to see like a different fabric, different like layouts, to play around with the design. So that was all for today's video. The result was obviously not perfect yet, and I feel like the image quality and the resolution was still missing from this AI. It seems like complicated details like material textures, fabric details, or like any patterns or something that still struggles. But I think for free tool, it's definitely very impressive, and especially this tool of like emptying out your space and restyling is so useful, like especially for someone who doesn't have interior design skills or technical skills. It's super easy, like if you're moving into like a new flat or you just want to redecorate your living room, you can instantly just test it out different ideas. You know, as an interior designer, it's something that we used to do this on Photoshop and it took ages to edit. So it's so amazing that now AI can just handle this within a second. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and as always, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. That will mean a world to me, and I'll see you guys on my next video. Bye.